Ladies and gentlemen, please find your way to your seats. The program will begin momentarily. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage GeekWire co-founders Todd Bishop and John Cook.
All right, good morning, everyone. We have a giant day ahead of us. How did everybody like the day yesterday and the after party at Frolic? Everybody had a good time? All right. Well, welcome to day 2 of the GeekWire Summit. We've got a big one ahead.
Absolutely. We've got a great lineup in store. Obviously, kicking off this morning with the diversity and inclusion panel. Welcome, everybody who's coming in from the panel in the Willow Room. Looks like you're still filtering in. We're just getting started, so grab your seats. That was a fantastic discussion. I got a lot out of it myself. Fantastic stuff from Zillow Group, and thank you for supporting us on that. Later today, speaking of Zillow, we're going to have Spencer Raskoff at 1 o'clock interviewing the Boardless founder, Sukhinder Singh Cassidy, talking about increasing diversity on boards. So it's going to be a really fascinating discussion. Also later this afternoon, we have a closing panel session that I'm really excited about, which is going to be talking about tech, media, and the future of the truth.
That's right. The people on that panel include the co-founder of Snopes.com, a University of Washington professor who teaches a popular class called Calling Bullshit, and tech journalist Ina Fried of Axios talking about the future of media and the truth. Plus, we're going to have new installments, brand new installments in our Inventions We Love and Immigrants Journey series. You're also not going to want to miss the talk by Todd Stabelfeldt, also known as the Quad Father. I cannot wait for that one. So you're going to want to stick around all day. And of course, coming up in just a few minutes, we have joining us Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella to speak about his new book, Hit Refresh. Can we get a mic over with Guillaume?
Yeah,
so
he's got one. He's got one. Yep.
So as you know, for the last 2 days, and actually for the last 2 GeekWire Summits, and this is his third, is our artist, our sketch artist, our note taker, Guillaume from at.a.m. Guillaume, why don't you give us a little narration of what you've been doing over there?
Well, Todd, thanks. I have news for you. This isn't art.
This is not art.
Yes. No, this is art. What you see is art, really. But the reason I do this is because of the ideas. And I think this is really helpful in a setting like this where we get access to all that insight, that inspiration. And this is so much that those boards are here to crystallize those ideas. And so yesterday we had several really cool sessions. The work is right here. I'm going to continue to draw more today. So feel free to come on. People ask me, can I take photos? Please do. Post photos, take photos, post them on social media, do whatever with them. That's for you. But yesterday we had a fantastic introduction session with Kevin Johnson from Starbucks. I really liked how he introduced the session with his personal story. Lots of great personal insights there, and how a tech guy like him ended up running Starbucks, and what his wife told him to support that idea. So check this story out. But then we moved on to a really powerful talk with Leslie Feinstein. I think this was really, really good. I mapped out her talk, and one of the questions that struck me was almost her last questions. Do they really want me here in this country? So, yeah, this is going to be another great day. Check the work out. Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Guillaume. Yep. Awesome stuff. It's amazing to watch him work and create really kind of this live mosaic of what's happening across the summit. And we really love partnering with Guillaume and at.a.m. Thank you, Guillaume.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Also, make sure to check out Bloomberg TV, which is broadcasting live from the GeekWire Summit in the exhibit hall. That's been one of the highlights for us this year, is to have Bloomberg TV here, along with journalists from around the country and around the world covering the GeekWire Summit, in addition to our GeekWire reporting team right up front here. Of course, you can check geekwire.com for coverage of all the sessions, anything you might have missed throughout the conference.
And make sure to check out all the sponsors in the exhibit hall. Actually, today's the day we're going to give away a full slate of awesome prizes. Seahawks tickets, a night stay at the Sheraton for the December 31st game, courtesy of our great partners at Bank of America. Those who support our Geeks Give Back campaign, our biggest philanthropic effort to support STEM education in Washington State, will get entered into that drawing, so make sure to participate in that. as well as a host of other prizes. Alaska Airlines will be giving away a couple round-trip tickets later this afternoon, so make sure you stay for that. And of course, Boeing for the cocktail hour will be giving away an awesome drone.
Also, there is a silent auction out there of some of the best photography by GeekWire photographer Kevin Lasota. You want to check that out. That is also in support of Geeks Give Back, and that auction ends early this afternoon. All right, let's give a quick thanks to our gold sponsors of the GeekWire Summit. Cirkled, sponsoring the Inventions We Love sessions. Home Advisor, which is giving away 3 smart home starter kits at a value of nearly $1,000 each. Wave Business, one of our longtime supporters and sponsors. And Wilson Sonsini, Goodrich, and Rosati, which presented yesterday's venture capital panel.
Also thanks to Extra Hop, which hosted yesterday's sponsored lunch session. Baidu, the presenter of the VIP reception at the welcome party. Boeing, our Wi-Fi sponsor. If you're new to the summit today, the login is Boeing Connect, so all lowercase. And also you want to stick around for that drone and the cocktail hour they're supporting later today. Dragon Chain, whose founder will be talking about the future of blockchain and cryptocurrency today during the sponsored lunch session in the Willow Room. That's going to be a fascinating talk. Really looking forward to that. And Zillow Group, which just presented the panel on diversity and inclusion in the Willow Room. Thanks to all of our gold sponsors. Let's give them a big round of applause. Also, make sure to check out all of our exhibitors. They are Stratacore, Intermap, Technology Alliance Group for Northwest Washington, GWA-TA, Validar, Acumatica, ReachNow, WeWork, Northeastern University, Nintex, Perkins Coie, OfferUp, and WSOS. Also, my apologies, I forgot to mention yesterday one of our great exhibitors, Cloud Enablers. They're the innovators of CoreStack. They are also over in the exhibit hall. We're glad to have all of you on board for the GeekWire Summit this year.
And of course, a huge thanks to our presenting sponsor, Bank of America, without whom we could not pull off an event of this scale, and they've just been amazing partners over the past 3 years. Now, I would like to welcome to the stage Bank of America's Managing Director of Investment Banking, Jamie Patterson. Jamie, come on up. It's great to have you here, and again, thanks for all your support.
Welcome. Welcome. Yeah.
Yep. Go for it.
Thanks very much. Good morning. My name is Jamie Patterson. I'm a Managing Director of Investment Banking at Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and thank you for having us. I know Bank of America probably is not top of mind when you think of technology companies, but I would counter we have 16,000 ATMs, we have an award-winning mobile banking, online banking platform with 44 million active users and 22 million mobile users, so pretty good traction, I think. At Bank of America, our purpose is to make financial lives better for our customers, our clients, and our communities, recognizing that we only succeed when everyone is thriving. That purpose has guided us over the past several years to change and make our company simpler, more straightforward, stronger, and better. And that's why we're here today. Supporting the GeekWire Summit is a demonstration of how we're investing in the region's economic success, because the topics and trends that are important to you are important to us. Strengthening our tech economy here in the Puget Sound is about better connecting to the unique needs and personal goals of those we serve so we can provide the tailored solutions you need. So I invite you all to come and stop by our Bank of America booth between sessions or when you're on a break to check out a few of our latest innovations like Erica, our intelligent voice and chat-driven virtual assistant, our award-winning mobile banking app, or Zelle, our peer-to-peer payments tool, or to learn how you can engage with Geeks Give Back in support of STEM education. Thanks again for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of the summit.
Great.
Thanks, Jamie.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. Great. A big thanks to Bank of America. They've been a great partner for many years on the summit, and we just love this partnership that we have with them. So now we have our first live poll of the day. This is for those who are just coming in for day 2. You must install our mobile app, so go and install that, certainly. And the live poll is going to be very much tied into our talk with Satya Nadella. what technology will have the biggest influence in our lives in the next 5 to 10 years. And of course, you have a few choices there. So make sure to vote in the live poll.
All right, before we head into our next session with one of technology's most inspiring leaders, we wanted to share a little bit of history.
Where does inspiration come from? Where does innovation begin? Where does the future really start? Our story began in a dorm room in 1975 on a strip of paper. And from there, a vision was born. We designed technology to build, technology to grow, technology to learn, explore, and create. And we turned a world of possibility into a world of reality. But no journey is without obstacles, and our challenges only encouraged us to go further. This is a new chapter with new frontiers, new possibilities, new obstacles, and a renewed passion and vision to face them all.
It is our mission to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more.
Our next speaker is just the third CEO in Microsoft's history, overseeing a renaissance of the company's culture and strategy in the 3.5 years since he became CEO. His new book, Hit Refresh, is the candid account of his life as an immigrant, a father, and a corporate leader. His efforts to reinvigorate Microsoft and his outlook on the future of technology. Please join me in welcoming to the 2017 GeekWire Summit, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. Hi, Satya. Thank you. Excellent. That was such a fun video, and we're going to return to some of those themes a little bit later, Satya. But I want to start with something that's a little bit more in tune with your own personal personality, and that is your love of cricket. And I actually brought something for you. You know, one of the anecdotes that Satya tells in the book, Hit Refresh, is that when he's on a conference call, and so I want to hand this to you. When he's on a conference call, he actually likes to hold a kookaburra cricket ball. So I went literally to the ends of the earth to find this thing. They're not easy to find. Tell us about your love of cricket, what it means to you, and how it influences your life as a person and a leader.
First of all, thank you so much. And this is probably, the one thing that people have found out because of the book is I love cricket. And so I've got a lot of kookaburra balls now. But I really appreciate it. Growing up in India, I would say for South Asians, this very English game has become more than a religion. And how it happened is just is one of those artifacts of history. And for me, when I look back, I think it's true in most team sports. In fact, the other day I had the great fortune of going and seeing the Seahawks train. And yes. Pete was sort of explaining how he even sets up the training session. And it brought back the memories because some of the coaches I played under and the captains I played under in cricket, I think these team sports grab you and teach you so many lessons. In my case, in the dusty fields of the Deccan Plateau, in fact, that is the place where I must have played a lot of cricket. And then I went back recently. And, and so I write about the lessons, whether it's about how to compete, how to, in some sense, one of the really incidents I recount is a captain I played under. I was a bowler and I was bowling trash that day. And so this guy replaces me and takes a wicket, gets us a breakthrough, and then gives the ball back. And that incident has sort of perhaps had a lot of influence because why did he do it? He could have just sort of broken all my confidence, thrown me out of the team. But for some reason, he decided that, you know what, I'm going to give this ball back because I went on to take more wickets and had a decent season. That ability, that sensibility of what leaders do to bring teams along to do their best work, you can learn from team sport.
I know that it also teaches endurance. I believe one of the types of cricket that you like to watch and perhaps play is test cricket. Can you explain for this American audience what test cricket is?
Yeah, one of my most, there's a huge debate going on in the cricket community because we now have a version of cricket which is like baseball, which I know Americans think is long, but for us that's the shortest form of cricket. And whereas I love the 5-day test cricket. It's like a Russian novel. It's got plots and subplots, and it's just beautiful. And so the debate really is, how does that continue in its popularity? But nevertheless, I'm a big fan, and I was very clear even with ESPN Cricinfo. If test cricket goes away, they'll lose one fan at least.
Yeah, that's right. So you actually got to sit down with ESPN Cricinfo. What was that like? Because I know that was sort of a highlight for you of the tour.
You know, it was really fun. I'd never been to Lord's in London, which is the home of cricket, as they like to call it. I'd been past it, but I'd watched it on telly a lot of times, but I'd never been in there. So to go to this hallowed ground, and then, and it's one of those other fascinating things that happens, I guess, when people go to places where you've read everything about it. And cricket has a lot of literature, by the way, around it. And I've read everything. And so this is one of those places that you walk in after having read about everything for a lifetime, and then you see the place, and it was just fun. And then to have an interview, as Frank Shaw, who works with me, was telling me, I don't know who was excited, whether the interviewer or I was, and I was really excited about that.
That's great, that's great. All right, let's take a look at this picture. February 4th, 2014, you were named the 3rd CEO in Microsoft's history. You're here with Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer, the prior two. What was going through your mind at this point, and what do you wish you could go back and tell that guy in the middle right now about what he was about to face?
You know, I, Todd, am a consummate insider. I grew up in the company that Bill and Steve built. Everything that I've learned, everything about me has been shaped by the company I worked for, which is Microsoft, for now 25 years, and obviously something that wouldn't have happened but for one of the greatest partnerships in business history, which is the partnership of Bill and Steve. And as I distinctly remember that day and leading up to that day, because it was not really long before that day I even knew that I was going to be CEO. The thing that I was seeking the most, and in particular based on all of the people around me that you see even in that photograph, is asking that existential question and being able to answer it for myself, which is, why do we as a company exist? You could say, what sort of a silly sort of way to start, but I do believe that. I do believe companies exist for a reason. There needs to be a sense of purpose. If there's going to be long-term success, you can't be bound by one brand, one product, one technology wave. It's got to go beyond that, right? Because anything that you started with is not going to last forever. But what is that core sense of purpose that can really help drive? And then, of course, what's the culture that will then help you reinforce that sense of purpose with every changing technology wave? So those were the things that, now I see it even 3.5, and in fact, this entire book came about not as some kind of we've reached any destination. If anything, it's reflections of a sitting CEO going through that process, that hard process of transformation, which, by the way, I posit is a continuous process. You'll never, ever reach your destination. How do you keep hitting refresh and being smart about it? That's what I would sort of say. I was pretty naive even 3.5 years ago about all of what I at least now know a bit of. And all I know is I know I need to learn a lot more.
Looking at this, it strikes me that Bill and Paul and then Bill and Steve had each other. There was a partnership. There were two partnerships that resulted in this company, really. You don't have a singular partner. You have what you call in the book a legion of superheroes,
right.
the SLT, as the Microsoft insiders would call it. How has that changed your leadership of the company, the way the company is run, and ultimately the culture of Microsoft?
In fact, Steve was the one who switched me on to this even, which is he had once reflected when he was CEO about how even in his tenure and his and Bill's tenure, as you rightfully said, it was Paul and Bill and then Bill and Steve, they built the company. Many management teams came and went, but they were constant. And so they could provide that continuity in their own way. And they realized that when the next CEO is going to be in place, the way that CEO will need to operate is going to be very different. And also the business, especially when I was talking to Paul recently, is when it struck me, right? How different the company is than the company that Paul worked at. In terms of its scope, its size, its complexity, its operation. So the thing that Steve was in fact trying to even do in his own tenure at Microsoft was to build more of a leadership team. For me, of course, it's an absolute necessity. There is no way I could operate with the context and the depth. I mean, Steve could do pretty much anybody's job better than anybody. I mean, he had such immense intellectual horsepower. I clearly don't. And the thing that I wanted to make sure is bring the team and also have that ownership for this is our company. And that's something that I've always felt, which is, and this is not just for the SLT, I want people inside the company to feel it's their company so that they can use it as a platform to realize their own mission and their own personal philosophy. And that's sort of what I believe applies to the leadership team as well.
You said earlier that you were the consummate insider, and you've said in the past that that gave you the credibility internally to make change. You were not an outside person coming in to make change. Now, after 3.5 years, the stock price has doubled. I recognize you don't have direct control over the stock price, but in fact, that is some external credibility that you've gained through your leadership of this company. What do you plan to do with that external credibility? Could you take even bigger bets now on Microsoft's future, given that kind of rope that you got on Wall Street?
I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, tech businesses in particular are about that constant need to renew itself by taking big bets, because in some sense we've got this attribute that things all look like failures until they're not. They're pretty binary transitions because of these network effects in technology. So you got to be able to see things that are changing long before their conventional wisdom, take bets, and then go after them in a strong way. So to your point, but at the same time, the market is going to hold you accountable. They're going to pass judgment on your judgment. In some sense, it's a rear-view mirror because they're trying to sort of make sure that you're able to walk the walk of producing results, and then they will give you permission. So you got to get, as I describe it, to use a cricketing metaphor, a batting average that is good. And I think that in Microsoft, in our 43rd year, think about it this way, Todd. I mean, here we are, 43 years after inception, fighting it out with a whole set of new characters, not the ones that we competed with 43 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. That, I think, shows that we have that capability, the capability to renew ourselves. We'll hit some, we'll miss some, but we'll keep at it. But I'm very, very excited about what we're doing in mixed reality, what we're doing in AI, what we're going to do even in some really longer lead things like quantum. And by the way, all these efforts didn't get started 3.5 years ago. It's really Bill who started MSR. It's Steve who started our cloud push. And so these are the folks who saw it long before, it was conventional wisdom that these are the things that can be successful. And that, I think, is key. And you're right. I mean, as an insider, I've been through that journey. But at the same time, I was also very grounded on the things that needed changing.
So along those lines, one of the things that struck me about the book, and it's fun to read a book like this as a reporter who's been covering the company because you get the inside information on some of the things that you've been doing that we've been reporting on, and you find out what really happened. So apart from the rose petals anecdote, which folks will have to find out about, one of my favorite anecdotes in the book gets directly to this, and that is how you and Amy Hood decided to reorient Wall Street. You said, we're not going to focus as much on where we are in smartphones, we were going to set a target, $20 billion in cloud revenue. And it was an interesting mind exercise that you went through to try and get Wall Street to look elsewhere. Is that a good approach? Would you give that advice to other CEOs in the audience to set goals like that and make them externally? Because it's risky.
I mean, it's clearly, I mean, one of the things, it's not about looking elsewhere, but one of the key things that we felt that we needed to make clear, both quite frankly, internally and externally, is what's the trend that we are really capitalizing on, and how are we winning in that space? Because that, I think, was going to be very important for the confidence internally and externally. The reality was most people even today sort of view our cloud sometimes narrowly by talking about it as, hey, here is your competition with AWS. That's one space. But if you look at even our cloud, we have our SaaS applications with Office 365. We have business applications with Dynamics 365. We have Azure. We are a believer in distributed infrastructure. So it's not just Azure. Azure has an edge with Azure Stack. So we wanted to make sure that it was clear, both internally and externally, that we will have a big business here. But most importantly, we will innovate. We'll serve our customers. And so you're right, you have to take that risk. And it's our ability to walk that walk, quarter after quarter, that's really helped the street, in some sense, say, well, this is a management team, this is a company that can, in fact, follow through, and we'll never be done. I'll have another quarterly call in a few weeks, and I have to show up with Amy and show our progress, and that's how it is, and that's what's going to give us permission to keep doing the AI work, the quantum work, the mixed reality work. But I think that's what all companies have to do, which is you've got to be able to perform, but you've got to also accrue power for the future. Because your revenue, one of the major cultural changes we made even in the company was not to fall in love with essentially lagging indicators of success, but really fall in love with leading indicators of success, which is, usage, customer satisfaction, come long before revenue and profit. And we needed to sort of make sure we are really tracking that, not just what we deliver per quarter.
I want to talk about the future of technology, and that portion of the conversation actually starts in an unexpected place here with your son, Zane. He was born with cerebral palsy, and you write in detail, very candidly, about your early struggles with this. But it has totally changed your outlook on the world, on technology, on your life. Walk us through that, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, Zane was born when I was 29 years old. And his birth, perhaps more than anything else, has shaped a lot of who I am, perhaps today. Especially, that was probably one of the more harder parts of writing even the book, to go back and reflect on it in more concrete terms as to what he has taught me. And as a 29-year-old, with both my wife and me, we were the only children of our parents. And so when Zane was about to be born, it was all exciting in the house, and we were looking forward to him and the nursery being ready, and whether Anu would get back to her work, or how quickly can she get back to her work as an architect, which she just started. But of course, that night when he was born, everything changed. He was born because of in utero asphyxiation with severe brain damage, which has led subsequently to cerebral palsy. And quite frankly, Todd, I struggled with it. I struggled for it for perhaps multiple years, because none of the well laid out plans of mine as sort of a mid-level or even an entry-level engineer at Microsoft were all sort of out of the window. I needed to sort of recalibrate, and I, for a long time, felt like, why has this happened to us and me? And then it's only by watching my wife, who even right after recovering from her C-section was driving Zane up and down the bridges here to get him to therapies and give him the best shot. And that's what perhaps really got me out of my stupor and said, okay, what do I as a father have to do? And over the years, we've been blessed in this community, whether it's the Children's Hospital, it's the physical therapists, the occupational therapists, the speech therapists, the community that we have now around us. and the connections and the role of technology. Zain, has gone through many, sort of hardships of, medical surgeries and what have you. And there was even one incident I remember. One day I was sitting waiting for him to come out of his surgery room, and then all of the equipment around me, a lot of that was Windows. And I was saying, hey, it does all better work. It just sort of gave me the feeling of, or the understanding of the responsibility even of a platform company, a technology company, because that's one of the things that's very unique about Microsoft, which is we are in every power grid, we are in every hospital, we are in every critical part of our society and our economy, and we've got to take that responsibility very, very seriously.
How has it shaped your views on the accessibility of technology and making sure that everyone can access the power of innovation?
And to me, my personal life, of course, has been a great influence on how I think about the importance of accessibility. But one of the things that I am seeing inside of Microsoft is this universal design and accessibility as a real driver of true innovation. And I'll give you a couple of things. One of the apps that we launched recently, which uses the cutting-edge AI in our cloud around computer vision, and gives anybody with visual impairment the capability to see. In fact, Angela Mills, who's a co-worker of mine, whom I had worked with very early on as part of my Microsoft career, was telling me this story of how she now can go into our own cafeteria at Microsoft, order with confidence because she can see the food, read the ingredients, read the menu. She can walk into conference rooms. We have Braille readers and what have you, but the issue is she wants to walk into the conference room knowing that that's the right one, not barge into something that's not the one that she needs to. And she can do that now with confidence. So she is able to fully participate. She's empowered because of AI and we're able to fully participort.
This is an app called Seeing AI.
Seeing
it's for
AI.
iOS and Android. You can hold it up to the world. It identifies people. It will tell you the approximate age of somebody. It's kind of like sort of a petri dish for AI technologies. It's really cool.
It's really cool, and in fact, we're going to try and even make it extensible, and there are already some extensibility, like it'll recognize currency if you want to pay. It's awesome. It just, it gives people more empowerment who need it. Similarly, what we did with learning tools. This is, again, another very passionate group inside of Microsoft who said, we have some amazing technology around reading, which now mixed with AI can change the outcomes for kids with dyslexia. So now in Word and OneNote, you have learning tools so that, kids or anyone with dyslexia can start, reading faster, better, more comprehend text. Steve Gleason came to one of our hackathons, and again, a group of passionate people sort of said, what can we do for an ALS patient who has the ability to move has gaze, eye gaze, but all of the other muscles can't be moved, but can they communicate? And so we now have in Windows 10, in fact, in the Fall Creators Update, eye gaze as an input mechanism. So I feel one of the things that's being unlocked is this fundamental recognition that it's not just about accessibility as AT technology. In fact, we historically, even at Microsoft, would think of it as, oh, wow, this is something that you do as assistive technology.
Kind of a niche.
As a niche, as something that you do on top of having built the product. But the reality is, the one thing that is true for all of us is, at some point in our life, we all will need some help with some sense of ours. That's going to be really the universal truth. So we better design products so that it can help everybody. And that's what I think we're trying to invoke. And the beauty of it is it's not some top-down thing, quite frankly. It is much more, if you look at our hackathons, but they don't end with just that 1 week we do. It takes life after that, where product teams are passionate. And we have a long distance to cover. But what Cortana can mean for accessibility, what mixed reality can mean for accessibility. These are exciting frontiers, and I think it's going to make us better AI company, a better devices company, a better everything company by sort of focusing in this area.
Great. So let's talk about the future. You identify 3 trends in the book: mixed reality, quantum computing, and artificial intelligence that are in your view, going to drive the future. Paint for us, if you will, a picture of that future. What is the world going to be like if these three things come to fruition for our grandkids, or perhaps even our grandkids? What are you thinking about now as you're laying the foundation for that future?
You know, one of the hazardous things to do is speculate in technology about the future. But these three trends broadly, how they manifest in specific terms, I think will be very path dependent. It'll be dependent on where we start. So here's how I think about it. Take mixed reality. We've been on this journey where we've been creating these mirror worlds, right? Which is, we have been trying to create metaphors that we find in the physical space in a digital world. Desktop being a great example of it. But for the first time, we now have the ability to take what you see and just superimpose in your field of view the digital artifact. So in other words, the analog and digital medium can merge. You can have a complete immersive experience. That's what people call virtual reality. Or people can, in fact, see the two together, and that's what people call augmented reality. Our view is that that's a dial that you get to set. And we're in the early stages of the devices. But ultimately, our dream is that people will have devices which will be like your glasses that you will wear, that you can set dials and be able to sort of really, all computing experiences will be mediated by this new medium. Now, in order to do that, you really need AI. I mean, one of the things that even in the HoloLens today is a chip called HPU, or the holographic processing units. It's one of the first neural processing units, because what it does is it understands spatially everything that is happening, and then is able to do the lock of a digital object into real space. That means it solves the computer vision challenge. So I think AI is going to be very much part of even bringing forth these new UI metaphors. In fact, I look at what we're doing with mixed reality as a gaze first, gesture first, and a voice first interface. Because you're not really trying to do keyboard and mouse or touch. But it's really all about gaze and speech and computer vision. And so that's the real AI capability that we want to build. Now, in AI, I feel one of the challenges we have, and we talked about all of the things around seeing AI or learning tools, but even take Cortana, one of the things that I'm most excited about is AI that helps me with my more scarce commodity, which is time. Every day I send lots of emails, get lots of emails. I make, in fact, commitments in email, which I forget. But Cortana saves me every day because it tells me, oh, you sent mail to Todd saying you'll follow up on Thursday, and Thursday comes and it'll wake up and tell me, hey, have you followed up with Todd? So AI that helps me, in fact, focus, get more out of my time, that's what we're trying to do with something like Cortana. And I think that that's going to be the real currency of our time, which is, I always say it's not, AI can help you stay distracted by engaging a lot more on, in things that, take away time. But the more real, purpose we need to solve for is how does AI give you back more time for the things that matter the most to you. And quantum, to me, is, if you say, well, this is amazing. We're going to have this mixed reality future. We're going to have all this AI. What's the one thing that we need more of? It's computing. In some sense, in spite of all the progress we've made, what is still not solved for, let's talk about all the computational problems that are not solved. We can't yet model that natural enzyme in food production. We can't model the catalyst that can absorb, say, the carbon in the air, or build a superconducting material for lossless power transmission. Those are all computational problems, and if you try to solve it using a classical computer, they'll take all the time from sort of beginning of time to now. And so obviously we don't have that time. And that's where I think these advances in quantum computing are going to be super important. So I think of these three things. They're not all on the same. They're not going to be linearly juxtaposed with each other. But I do believe that these three changes are going to be profound in their impact in our lives and in our work.
All three of these areas are highly competitive. Microsoft is far from the only company pursuing them. You've got two competitors in particular in Google and Apple that have an advantage in that they have their own large base of first-party smartphone hardware users. How much of a disadvantage is it for Microsoft that you don't have that on the smartphone now, and how will you overcome it?
That's it's a great question, and it's absolutely right, which is there are 300 million PCs sold, and there's 1 billion smartphones sold. So therein lies, I guess, the math around the high-volume device. I take inspiration, quite frankly, from our own history and how others approached it. There was a time when the only hub for all things was the PC, and until it was not. And today, of course, the conventional wisdom is, that's it. This is the last device that you will ever need and want and have, and if you don't participate in it this second, there is no way. Except the two companies you mentioned were born after, or the rebirth, at least, of Apple was, came not because of their PC share going up. It was mostly because of what they did with the iPod and the iPhone later. So the question really is for us, how do we meet the reality of today and then invent our own future? And the way I think of that is, first, let's make sure our software and applications are used on iOS and Android. So we want to be first class. After all, most people don't remember this, but Office was there on the Mac before Windows was even a platform. And so this is not new to us, and we want to go and make sure that whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Skype, whether it is Office, whether it's Outlook, are used every day, or our games, Minecraft. We want to make sure whether it's gaming or productivity and communications, do our best work on iOS and Android. We also want to look at these changes in form function. What is a mobile device today? How is that going to be shaped? And whether it's what we did with Surface. After all, that was a category with 2-in-1. Nobody thought that there would be such a category. We invented it. We popularized it to the point that now we have good competition. That means we've got to keep at it. What's the next form function change? And also, what are these new big changes, like mixed reality, which in fact put everything up in the air, in terms of what's the, if you can start seeing your computing in front of you, you're probably not going to keep reaching out to your phone as the hub for everything. So I feel we've got to do our best work and take some bets. Some we will hit, some we won't, but we are very, very committed to both making sure that our cloud services are available as great applications on every mobile endpoint, and we invent the next set of devices, the next set of form factors with the next set of natural interfaces.
Have you given up on smartphone hardware?
The thing that we absolutely do not have the share to have a smartphone hardware that's a real consumer choice. That's, I think, the reality of it. I think there's a lot of press, I think, this week suddenly around this. But the reality is that we cannot compete as a third ecosystem with with no share position and attract developers. So the thing that we are doing is to make sure that the software is available so that we can service the enterprise customers who really don't care about a lot of the things that a consumer will care about. And it's one operating system for us. So it's not like we have a phone operating system that is separate from the Xbox operating system that's separate from the Windows operating system. It's one platform. And so that's where we are. And what we are now all in on is to say, OK, what are we going to do with Surface? How are we going to push the boundaries of what is a PC even? And all in on mixed reality, all in on gaming, all in on all of our applications on iOS and Android. And that's how we're going to go at it.
You just asked a good question. What are you going to do on Surface?
Well, I'll tell you, we have a lot of exciting things that are happening in Surface.
Is there any kind of form factor that you're most interested in that you have not yet entered?
I mean, I'm definitely not going to talk to you about it on the GeekWire stage before I have the device.
Just you and me and a few of our friends here.
But I think the lesson for us, one of the things that, again, Steve was the one who really taught us this was, you got to build the capability. If you think about even the last 5 years or 7 years, the capability we now have, of being able to build devices. It's not about the device, it's the software plus the device, and the ability to, or even it's not even just the device as a system, it's even the ASICs, like the HPU. The fact that we now have that capability to do end-to-end, as I like to call it, from silicon to cloud, is what now we've got to use to innovate new categories. And clearly, category creation is going to be a big part of what we have to do.
Yesterday, we had two of Amazon's top executives, Tony Reed, the head of Echo and Alexa, and Jeff Wilke, the CEO of Amazon's consumer business. You have a front row seat for a very interesting story in technology, even apart from Microsoft right here in the Seattle region. You've been partnering with Amazon between Cortana and Alexa. What are your observations about Amazon and the growth that they've seen?
I mean, I think Amazon's a very impressive company. What Jeff and his team have done is something that I think I've long admired, and I think there's a lot that we can learn. In fact, the good news, I think, is between Microsoft and Amazon, we have a lot of cross-pollination of talent, and it's, I think, helpful for this region, by the way, which I think was something that Silicon Valley always had, which I think is a good thing for this region. But I do, I mean, when I look at what we're trying to do with even Alexa and Echo in particular, it's very straightforward, which is I want to make sure that at any point in time, value that we can deliver to customers is not artificially held back because the way to reach them is through someone else's platform. I feel like one thing I have learned actually at Microsoft is that, and most people don't think of it that way, but that's the lesson I learned from what we did with Office on the Macintosh to start with. So I thought that was, Cortana is going to be the assistant that helps me with my time, my productivity. That's going to be the unique skill. So there's no reason why I shouldn't have that capability if I'm a user of Echo and Alexa. So that's the partnership we have. We're going to see. These are all about user habits. I'm not a believer in that. Oh, there's going to be this one agent. I think each agent is going to have different characteristics. And you should be able to scaffold these agents together. Some of them, after a while of habitual use, will even become automatic. That's what at least both Jeff and I talked about, and that's what we would hope to see.
Will we ever see a Microsoft HQ2, another headquarters somewhere else in North America?
We are very, very happy where we are. I love in fact, one of the things we're also committed to is what I would say is our development that's happening in many parts of the world and many parts of the United States. We have a thriving Silicon Valley office. We, in fact, just broke ground for a new office there. We have a big office in New York now. We have offices in Boston and Cambridge, obviously in China and in India. And so I am at least in no hurry to talk about any HQ2s. I'm happy with where we are in Redmond.
The Amazon example is a good one because it's emblematic of the approach you've changed, and you write about this in detail in one chapter of the book, with those industry partnerships. Frenemies, you're competing on some fronts and you're cooperating on others. What's the most awkward moment you've had? Has it been Salesforce when they competed or they disputed your LinkedIn acquisition? How have you navigated those?
I think the fundamental approach I always take is how can we look at things which are so that they're non-zero sum, and recognizing where there is overlap and there is going to be zero sum competitions. But and especially in today's day and age, right, which is we are lucky as a company and as a community in tech to be in tech. It's shaping every walk of life, every part of our economy. And I think it'll be really, in some sense, short-sighted to view things inside of our own industry as all zero-sum. And so that's at least an attitude that I come out with, and that's what sort of shapes a lot of our partners. But at the same time, we're going to compete. We compete with Salesforce in business applications head on. In fact, we are the disruptor in that space. I'm so excited about what we're doing with Dynamics and Dynamics 365. It completely changes the business model, the technology, and everything. But at the same time, Salesforce and Office 365 for the users of those two clouds is great integration. And this is something we did in the past as well, whether it was with Oracle or with SAP. And so I want to just bring that maturity. I sort of feel sometimes what is needed is customer obsession. Let's view things through how they view us versus just our own strategery all the time, and then compete.
So I can't even believe we haven't talked about the largest acquisition in Microsoft's history, which closed less than a year ago, LinkedIn. In our pre-event survey, one of the biggest concerns among attendees was privacy. Data is one of the biggest assets that you acquired through LinkedIn. How can you capitalize most on that data while still being respectful of current and future privacy concerns?
Yeah, I mean, I think the entire LinkedIn proposition franchise, as you said, is built around trust. Trust about the data of LinkedIn and the value LinkedIn provides to the user. So that's of the paramount importance. And that's why even when there were some concerns about what we would do with it, it's very clear that there is not, we will only do things that the community of LinkedIn gives us permission and adds value to them. So that's not our data. It's the data of the 500 million people who use LinkedIn, who are members of LinkedIn. And that's one of the things that I reinforce at Microsoft. We don't own data. It's either the user data or it's the organizational data. And we are essentially entrusted to make it secure, make it private, and make sure that they are in control and we are very transparent about all of it. And those principles is what guides everything that we do, whether it's in Office 365 or whether it's on LinkedIn. And if there is value in integration, you have to ask for permission and get that permission. And I think that's where we're going. And so things like GDPR are essentially going to legislate that. And so therefore, that's the world we should build for.
Should we expect an acceleration of integration between the companies? We've started to see a little bit of it between LinkedIn and Microsoft in terms of the products.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, I feel very, very good about one of my top goals was the re-acceleration of LinkedIn, and we'll talk more about this even in the next quarter early earnings. But then on top of that, the product integrations. The product integrations we announced between Office 365 and LinkedIn, between Dynamics 365 and LinkedIn, these are all there today, and our customers benefit from it. So we're all, in fact, it's one of those places where we've executed super well on a large acquisition, keeping their ethos, their culture, their value proposition, accelerate that core asset, and then add these product integrations, not exclusively. There can be others who can also do these product integrations. So that's, I think, been our strategy.
Before we close here, I want to talk about a couple of your personal community initiatives. You are on the boards of the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center. Dr. Gary Gilliland was here yesterday, and also, of course, of Starbucks. Kevin Johnson was here yesterday. Share with us what you're hoping to accomplish through those roles.
Oh, it's a real privilege to be associated with these iconic organizations in the community. With Starbucks, in fact, Kevin was at Microsoft. I worked for Kevin when he was at Microsoft, and I've known him, and I've gotten to know Howard, and I think he was here yesterday.
Yes.
And I'm very, very excited about what Starbucks is doing, whether it's ultimately, it's about that experience that they're trying to create and using of digital technology, and to be on the board, to learn, and to contribute. I think that's fantastic. And what Gary and team are doing at Fred Hutch is just truly inspiring to me, to have even that goal of solving cancer by the turn of the next decade. It's an audacious goal. It's one of these places where, again, I had not understood it, which is one of the big rate limiters to even progress in cancer, is how can you take the research that is happening and make it comprehensible in a way so the new hypotheses can be created by sort of the researchers at Fred Hutch and other places. So technology is going to play a huge role. For me, I'm learning so much, and Gary is an amazing leader in terms of the organization. He's got a great team. So it's fantastic to be associated with both of these organizations.
As you look to the future, I know that you're a big fan of poetry. Is there a line or a phrase of poetry that most capitalizes or summarizes your view of the future personally and of Microsoft and of the technology industry?
It's fascinating. You see, as we were getting ready to disclose at our Ignite conference a few weeks back some of our quantum efforts, so I had a chance to spend a lot of time with Michael Friedman, who's a Fields Medal winning mathematician who's part of our quantum effort. And he was schooling me on a lot of the quantum technology. And being a mathematician, so he asked me this question, he said, hey, do you know your square roots? I said, what? I think I did. I was not a great student, but I think I know square roots. And he says, do you know square roots of imaginary numbers? And I didn't know where he was going, but it turns out that the square roots of imaginary numbers have a lot to do with quantum computers. But there was this line of poetry I'd read a couple of years ago by a Pulitzer Prize-winning poet called Vijay Seshadri. It's called Imaginary Numbers. And it goes something like this. It's the soul like the square root of -1 is an impossibility that has its uses. And I think it just captures, I think, a lot, that force that's within us, that seeks out the unimaginable, that gets us up to solve the impossible. And so there is poetry behind square roots of imaginary numbers.
Well, Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO, thank you very much for joining us at the GeekWire Summit. Thank you so much. Thank you. Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd and Satya. Amazing stuff. I mean, where can you go from cricket to AI to universal design to mixed reality and then end with poetry? Of course, here at the GeekWire Summit. Amazing, amazing stuff. Thank you again to Satya and Todd for that great discussion. A plug for Satya and his book. We do have a pop-up bookstore going on at the GeekWire Summit this year where we have Satya's book, of course, displayed, but also recommendations of many of our speakers of books that they think you might want to take home with you and read. So make sure you check that out in the main lobby. And we're going to jump right into our next session here. We're thrilled to invite to the stage our next speaker, Margaret O'Mara. She's a history professor at the University of Washington and author of the upcoming book, Silicon Age. In today's talk, Margaret's going to talk about the changing dynamics of cities and the role that technology companies play in shaping new urban environments. It's going to be a really fascinating discussion. So take it away, Margaret. Welcome.
Thanks so much, John, and thanks to all of you. Thanks, John and Todd and the whole team for inviting me here. It is great to be here. And you guys are wondering, why am I listening to a history professor? This has been an amazing 2 days of talking about building the future, about what's next, about what we can expect, what we can imagine in the next 5 years, 10 years, and that is what the technology industry has been so extraordinary at doing. There is a room full of people with smartphones in their pockets that have more computing power than the mega computers that powered the Cold War, than the rockets that sent astronauts to the moon in the 1960s. And there is this extraordinary track record of expansion and achievement is something that makes me so interested as an American historian in how that happened. How did we get to now? How did we get to an American-based, American-dominated technology economy where the 5 biggest companies alone have combined market caps that are upwards of $2.7 trillion. A nation in which there are 1,100 computers for every 1,000 people. And how does the story of American technology relate to the bigger story of American history? And why should we care? Well, I think we should care because if you're building the future, history can be your most powerful weapon. Understanding how we got here, how we got to now, is a way to prepare for and understand what the now is, why things are the way they are, the great things, and also the not so great things. Understanding both the incredible opportunities presented by new and emerging technologies and existing technologies, and also the unanticipated consequences. History is also important, I think, particularly now for a technology industry, a global technology industry, that is now at the center of nearly everything. Software is powering everything. Every company now is a technology company. And this is something that is new. This is something that hasn't always been with us. And because technology companies are so front and center, and so the tools that they have developed are ones that billions of people use every day, they are now getting the heat and light of the spotlight, the political spotlight, the media spotlight, in the way that other big dominant industries of earlier eras did in the past. The age of the great railroads of the late 19th century, of steel and oil in the early 20th century, of Detroit's big 3 automakers in the middle part of the 20th century. Now, the technology industry, a technology industry that is intensively clustered in certain places in the world and in the United States, now has a heck of a lot of attention played on it. And so this is both a challenge and an opportunity. It's an opportunity for people in the industry to understand how it relates to this broader tapestry of American political history and cultural history, and also an opportunity and a necessity for the industry and industry people and leaders and these incredibly creative minds who have brought these fantastic products to market to step forth and sit at the table with other leaders in the private sector, other public sector leaders, nonprofit sector leaders, to figure out where we go from here. And so to show you, I want to begin this history lesson and understanding why this knowledge of history can be so powerful and empowering by talking about the president and Russia. Different president. So in the spring of 1988, Ronald Reagan, who 4 years before had declared the Soviet Union an evil empire, had visited Moscow for the first time. This was the season of Gorbachev, of glasnost, of perestroika, of a new thawing in relations, nearly the very end of the Cold War. And he gave a speech. The optics of it must have been the White House advance team's nightmare, right? They tried to get the organizers to cover the statue, but apparently that didn't go over. And he is giving a speech at Moscow State University, which, if those of you in this business know, is the elite technical university of at the time in the Soviet Union. He's giving a speech in front of 600 engineering students, the best, the top of their class, the future leaders of the technology industry. And he starts talking about revolution. He doesn't talk about the founding fathers. He doesn't even talk about the Reagan Revolution or the Conservative Revolution. He talks about microchips. And he says there is a revolution going on in the world today. It is a bloodless revolution, but it is transforming everything. And its agent is this little device, a tiny device smaller than your fingernail. and it is changing the world. And then Reagan goes on to talk about how this is an extraordinary product of American freedom and democracy, that this entrepreneurial explosion that came out of the United States, particularly in the personal computer industry with companies like Microsoft in the 1980s, is proof positive of the free enterprise system at work. And Ronald Reagan was right. It was an only in America story that the United States in the 20th century became this incredibly hospitable environment for entrepreneurial activity, for people to come up with great ideas and be able to execute on them, for these companies to start in garages and to grow to become multi-trillion-dollar enterprises. But it was only part of the story, because it wasn't purely a free enterprise story. It was a story of a society, a culture, and a government that created conditions, not always intentionally, but incredibly fruitful conditions for a tech industry to grow. It was conditions like that the Manhattan Project and the Cold War that built these massive supercomputers, creating research centers at universities and at federal research facilities, a lot of them in this part of the country, that fostered this new developments of computing, of first vacuum tube powered and then transistor powered computing. Again, this very deep-pocketed venture capitalist that was the US military and other US agencies that are spending lots and lots of money on scientific R&D, and particularly on the development of computer hardware and software. But it wasn't just a whole bunch of money. It was how that money was spent. And a great example is what happens when, in the 1960s, when the attention turns to aerospace and bringing a man to the moon. Because this creates whole new streams of government spending that are focused on fostering the development of really small, really lightweight electronics. What are places that are really good at developing really strong, really lightweight electronics? Well, one of the centers of that was Northern California, the Bay Area. And what happens in the area that later becomes known as Silicon Valley in the 1960s is that you have a whole bunch of federal money coming in that's this ground floor for a competitive marketplace where small companies are competing with one another for contracts. So it wasn't just government pork coming from Washington to develop certain types of integrated circuits or transistors or oscillators or radar. It was a competitive contractual marketplace where small companies could get a toehold and have an opportunity to grow with a guarantee of a very deep-pocketed customer before there was a commercial market for any of the products. So think about the foundational technologies that are animating all of the devices in this room today, the devices that Microsoft is developing, marketing, and selling, that other companies, Seattle-based, Bay Area-based, other around the world-based, are developing. These are foundational technologies are coming from this moment. And other things matter too, this only in America story. It's the free movement of people. And the unique American situation of having open doors, both in its universities and increasingly its immigration policies, to immigrants and refugees from around the world, people like Andy Grove, who immigrated here as a teenager from Eastern Europe, as a refugee, who goes on to become CEO of Intel. And immigrant stories again and again and again, culminating in so many of the people who've inhabited this stage over the last 2 days. This, again, is distinctive this is going back to, only in America, only in the United States. This is a product of American history. This is a product of public policy choices that allowed this to grow. And so even after the big rush of defense spending goes down and new commercial markets spring up, where does high tech grow? It grows in places that were centers of defense spending, centers that had this university activity around computer hardware software development, that had this research expertise, where you have people who are literally the children of that era. Steve Wozniak's father was an engineer at Lockheed Aerospace, Space and Missile in Sunnyvale, California. He was there, and he was learning about computers because of this Cold War economy. Same thing goes with Seattle, another defense hub, another place that had a research university that had a computer lab, when a lot of places didn't have computer labs. Where you have opportunities for young kids to get their hands on computers, to start playing with software, to be in an atmosphere where there is lots of expertise around them. And so this idea that you could start your own software company or your own hardware company and grow at large becomes something that's a reasonable possibility and probability. But for a long time, high tech was still, even as big as these companies came, they still were kind of off to the side of the main narrative of American history. You look at history textbooks, right? The textbook you read in high school. You learn about presidents, you learn about wars, you learn about all sorts of things. There might be a section on the tech industry, right? Oh, these guys making these funny things. But it was still not central. The first time Microsoft made the Seattle Times and any sort of editorial coverage in the Seattle Times was on Christmas Eve, 1980. This is after it signed the IBM deal. It's been in business. The guys have been in business for several years. BASIC is the platform of choice, operating system of choice for the microcomputer industry, which is still very small. And that's the first time there's any mention of Microsoft, and it's kind of in passing, talking about office parks in Bellevue. So there was not this recognition that the centrality of the technology industry. And part of this had to do with geography. So the technology industry grew up, in many cases, in suburban places, off to the side. So you look at what became Silicon Valley, which prior to now was originally a rural landscape of orchards. The biggest export of the Santa Clara Valley in the 1920s was prunes. It was the prune capital of the world. If any Seattleites want to needle any Bay Area people, you can say, oh, you're from the prune capital of the world. But no longer. But one of the things that, one of these legacies, not only do we have these legacies of this big surge of defense spending in the 50s and 60s that shape the products that are developed and what the possibilities are technologically, it shapes where technology grows. And it grows often in research parks, suburban research parks, away from the cities. There was a deliberate effort. Stanford set a model of being a first university to establish a research park next to its campus, and very deliberately designed it so that it would kind of blend in with the suburban surroundings of Palo Alto around it. And Stanford's model and the mid-20th century suburban corporate research park model that we see on both the East and the West Coast is something that becomes kind of, when you think of tech for a very long time, it was in a suburban campus. When Microsoft expands beyond its original facilities in Bellevue, it moves to a campus in Redmond, the Googleplex in Mountain View. And then internationally, here's Microsoft's offices in Bangalore. Again, peripheral to the center of the city, its own contained development, has its own infrastructure, own utilities. And here's in Singapore, similar peripheral, often government-sponsored, and public-private collaborative developments that grow on the periphery, but they're self-contained. And so this is one of the reasons that we have kind of this separation between the growth of this amazing, this engine of the technology industry and the rest of the world. But now things are changing. Now we have technology coming back to the city at the same time that technology companies, both large, medium, and small, are having an even more immediate, more giant, more recognizable impact on the way people live, the way they work, the way they communicate, the way they vote, the way that they relate to one another. Everyone's talking about technology companies. They're at the center of the consciousness in the way that they were not in an earlier era. And now they're in the center of cities. And all of a sudden, these isolated research parks are now right in the middle of these very crowded urban places. And suddenly, people are saying, well, technology companies are the reason why this is going wrong, that's going wrong, the other is going wrong. But it isn't as though as we can see, this is a room filled with human beings. Companies are filled with people. And so the answer to where technology might go from here is in the people. Because these are not just companies that are coming to cities to disrupt and to displace, but they are full of incredibly talented, incredibly socially minded people who are thinking about these broader questions and wondering how their work can have an impact on it. And quite frankly, particularly because you have these companies have grown to such size, the products are so ubiquitous, that it is time to step to the table and be part of the solution. So I am bullish on tech. I'm bullish on the technology. I have seen the trajectory of technological, sort of incredible technological growth, and again, the supercomputers we all carry around in our pockets. It's underscored to me even more strongly the more that I learn about the history of the technology industry. But what I also have learned is that you cannot say, oh, what goes on with politics and government has nothing to do with us, or urban planning and the business of cities doesn't have anything to do with us. We just need to be heads down, developing really great technology, and that's going to fix it. That's not going to work anymore. It has to do with the size of the industry, the influence of the industry, the fact that software truly has eaten the world. And this is an opportunity. This isn't a time for battle. This isn't a time to take sides. This is a time to think about what does changing the world really mean? And how can we engage? And how can we use history as our most powerful weapon in doing so? So here's to the future. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks, Margaret. Great stuff. Really interesting insights there. Love mixing it up here on the GeekWire Summit stage. Now, before we go to the break, Todd, you've got a special announcement.
That's right. So, as many of you know, we're doing a silent auction out in the lobby to benefit the Washington State Opportunity Scholarship. And we were adding a new item. We got Satya Nadella to sign the cricket ball that we gave him, and he's going to put it out there in the auction. So that'll be out there for you. I will say, not unlike many other celebrities, he signs with just one name. It's just Satya, not Satya Nadella. So that'll be out there to bid on.
And there's some amazing photos from GeekWire photographer Kevin Lasota as well. I know some of you have already bid. That bidding ends at 1, so make sure you place that bid.
All right, before we go to the morning break, it's time once again for the Best Buy box.
Todd, what was better, interviewing Satya or coming up with the Best Buy box?
Exactly, yes. You stumped me, John, yeah. No, the Best Buy box is pretty fun, but there's no comparison to getting to interview Satya. It was a lot of fun. All right, so let's look at today's puzzle. Just a reminder, this puzzle leads to a 4-digit combination that unlocks the Best Buy box at the Best Buy booth over in the exhibit hall. If you figure out the code, you get 1 prize to solve the Best Buy box. I am not going to give you any clues. I will tell you this one is much easier than the complex magnetic puzzle we had yesterday.
Some people are smart. They're taking photos of it. Yes, because it's only going to be up there briefly. It might reappear here during the break. So yeah, very smart. Yeah, look at these people taking photos. That's great. Also, our live poll. Let's look at the results from the live poll. We were asking what technology will have the biggest influence on our lives in 5 to 10 years. AI, obviously a big part of our chat here during the summit. Not a surprise there. Mixed reality, 15%.
Sort of a horse race there, neck and neck in between the other three, and something not yet invented. It's funny, we got into the quantum computing discussion during the chat with Satya. I almost wanted to give a definition of molecules and atoms and how they're going to replace computer processors, but I know all of you know that, and at least 13% of you do. So
that's right.
Everybody here understands quantum, of course. Right?
Yes, and thanks for Cray for supporting the live polls in the GeekWire Summit app. Also, in the exhibitor hall, Bloomberg TV is broadcasting live from the summit, so make sure they have a full slate of programming over there with great interviews slated, so make sure you check that out. And enjoy this morning break. It's presented by Alexandra Real Estate Equities. So thanks, Alexandria Real Estate Equities.
And also, we're going to take a break on the live stream. We are live streaming selected GeekWire Summit talks, not everything. You got to come here to see the entire thing, but we're going to take about a 25-minute break on the live stream, but we will be back in about 25 minutes with another highlight for you.
Great.
All right, enjoy the morning break.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program will begin momentarily. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage John Cook.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back from the break, and we're excited to jump in. I am thrilled to introduce to the stage now my good friend and GeekWire reporter, Lisa Stifler, who writes for our Impact series, who's going to set up our next couple sessions here.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. I'm thrilled to join the GeekWire Summit. Before we jump into our next speaker, let's take a look at another installment of GeekWire on Assignment.
When does the singing start?
And I had the time of my life, and I'll never...
Hey guys, Captain GeekWire. Who are you wearing today?
Who am I wearing? I am the one and only the Sea Witch. It's about 6 months and then my squid mama just popped me out and it's all over, huh?
Tell me how I did. Captain GeekWire.
Yeah, the branding is very clear. Oh yeah.
Clear branding. My boss will like that.
What is this called, Monica?
This is appropriately called the butt case by Handle, and I think this is probably my favorite pitch I've received. It's designed for comfort, because who wouldn't be comfortable grabbing that?
I don't know how you describe this either. This thing has been underground for, since December 2015, and to be here today to watch it actually emerge, a day that many people thought might not come.
All right, now we're getting ready to celebrate Netflix on Us, the latest Un-carrier move from T-Mobile. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1, yeah!
Well, Bill Gates, thank you very much for speaking with GeekWire.
Yeah, great to see you.
Thank you. And by the way, I know you like white socks.
Great, cool.
So we brought those as a gift.
Excellent.
Okay. All right. Those are my wonderful colleagues having lots of adventures out in the field.
You still want to hang out with us misfits?
I know. I was thinking it's a geek and GeekWire right there, for sure. And now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Reetu Gupta. She is CEO of Cirkled, a self-described dreamer and doer, and one of the wonderful tech leaders that we're featuring in our series, Immigrant's Journey. Welcome, Reetu.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. 18 years ago, I came to this country with 2 suitcases and life savings of $2,000. Today, I'm standing here on the stage where you just heard Satya and other Fortune 50 company CEO. I can tell you it can only happen in this country, the land of opportunities. But let me first take you back to the beginning of my story. I was born in a really tiny town in Haryana state, northern India, about 120 miles from New Delhi, but 7 hours of bus ride, if that gives you an idea. On calendar, it was 20th century, but economy and society were very much in 18th. Day-to-day life was very difficult. India was a democratic country, but run by public sector, meaning very, very slow. And the things were, there were things like no running water. In fact, sometimes no water at all for days. No electricity for 12 to 14 hours a day, and very poor infrastructure. Homework was often done in a candlelight. Money was tight. I used to get one nice outfit per year and a new pencil when my current one was so small that I couldn't hold it in my hands. And every person was just stuck at the lowest layer of Maslow's pyramid, if you know what I mean, meeting basic needs of food and shelter. I was there too. I didn't like it. I didn't accept it. In fact, inefficiencies of system used to boil my blood. I broke all norms of society, and I was always getting in trouble. But I couldn't dream, because I couldn't imagine a world outside that town. I didn't know what life is supposed to be. I thought this is how it's supposed to be, hard. Now, don't get me wrong. I won't change a thing in my life, because that's what made me who I am today, a rebel. I'm just sharing my story with you to show you the world I grew up in and the rebel that grew in me. And let me tell you where the rebellious genes come from. My mom. She was not allowed to study after 10th grade. So she snuck out of her home to go to college. It took her 7 years to complete a 4-year degree. After marriage, she did her master's when she was pregnant with me and had my 3-year-old sister. When I was 8 years old, she started her own elementary school right in our home. And she dragged me and my sisters into running it. We used to go door to door convincing people why they should educate their kids and send them to school. Without me knowing, importance of education penetrated deep into my brain. And I decided to go for engineering and fix the system I was living in. 1988, I graduated high school on top of my district equivalent of county here. And I got National Merit Scholarship. That enabled me to go to engineering college. And even before my 16th birthday, I joined National Institute of Technology, Kurukshetra, 30 miles from my home, 3 hours bus ride. And this was the first glimpse of somewhat city life for me. I was a geeky, nerdy, small-town girl with thick glasses who didn't speak a word of English, total misfit. But that college changed a caterpillar into a butterfly. I stayed there to do my master's in engineering. And after that, hunt for jobs started. That's a whole another story. I had to go to nearest nearby city, New Delhi, to look for a job. Now, that wasn't easy. I had to survive on $12 a month, roughly. I used to skip lunch and walk for miles, applying for jobs from building to building. Yes, there was a world before internet, if somebody is wondering. In 1995, after 6 months of struggle, I did find a job for $62 a month, and I was thrilled. Right then, India also started economic liberalization and opened its doors to the world for investment. Every big company came and set up the shop there. And it brought new opportunities for people like me. So, 1996, I joined Indian subsidiary of Hughes Network Systems in New Delhi. Through that company, in 97, I came to US, Maryland for the first time on business visa. And that was love at first sight. Talk about expanding horizon, right? That'll be an understatement. Imagine how will you feel if you could go to Mars today for vacation. It was very similar feeling. Running water in the sink, that's really a thing. Multiple lane highways, double door refrigerators, oh my God. But more importantly, overall quality of life was so much better. I felt this is where I belong. Rebel in me thought, this is where I should have been born. There must have been a glitch in the simulation that put me in India. So I decided to move here permanently. 1999, 2 suitcases, $2,000, newly married, and a whole bunch of dreams in my eyes this time. I thought I could change the world, not just a system. And I knew it's going to be hard, but I knew if it can happen only in this country, the land of opportunities. Very soon we realized coming on H-1B visa on your own time is very different than coming on business visa through a company. And $2,000 don't go too far when you pay $50 a night for the hotel. I remember my husband and I used to walk to a nearby Chinese restaurant. And the owner, Maria, became a good friend of ours. And she offered to give us 1.5 servings that my husband and I shared. But I also remember, by the time I used to walk back to the hotel, we used to feel hungry again. Those were the days. 4 weeks later, I got my project in AT&T Wireless, and life started to normalize. As we moved into apartment, that Chinese restaurant owner, Maria, gifted us 4 chairs from her restaurant, our first furniture. I still have those. I have a hard time parting from them. AT&T project was super cool. Startup, stealth mode, whole bunch of funding. Interestingly, immigration was still a learning curve for everybody. I remember one time I was talking to a coworker, and my team lead jumped into the conversation, and he said, if you are having problems with visa, go with American Express. And he was dead serious. Over time, I flourished. Basically, I moved up in Maslow's pyramid. I could think about self-actualization. I said yes. I said yes to opportunities, yes to challenges, yes to jumping in the deep end of the pool without knowing how to swim. I got so many opportunities. People are very accepting and welcoming, and that feeds into workplace. There's no power distance. That enabled me to ask questions, contribute, and get where I am today. And it's that journey that brought me here today. And through my accomplishments, hopefully I have contributed to the economy and bettered the world. Over time, I have filed 5 patents on user interface for pilots. A lot of those patents are still in use in airplanes and hopefully saving lives. In 2005, I had immense opportunity to design FAA's next-gen air traffic control and European single European sky initiative as well. When I was in India, I didn't put a foot on airplane till I was taking my first flight to US. And here, within 9 months of joining Honeywell, I was sitting in Maastricht control system, testing my software on a live operational system. I even dared to do MBA with full-time job, 2 young kids. I had the opportunity to learn from the best of the best. In 2010, I graduated from University of Washington, Foster School of Business, go Huskies, on top of my class. MBA opened the doors that I didn't even know existed. That led to birth of Cirkled, my company. Now, with Cirkled, we have embarked upon a whole another journey. And it's not easy as an entrepreneur. But we have built our village. People like Gary Robbins and Clayton, a good friend of mine, and many, many supporters have picked me up many times. Recently, we got Jonathan Sposaro as part of our advisory board, an investor, and we are thrilled to have him. The thing is, nothing comes free in life. There's always a price. And the price I have paid for these opportunities, the biggest one is social bonding and support. I don't have family here. Friend circle is very limited. And it's hard to raise kids when grandparents are not part of their daily life. They don't have play dates with kids. I miss my mom, and I call her every 3 to 4 days for recipes sometimes. Nonetheless, this is where we are, because that's how immigrants are. They are, by default, people who are not content with status quo in their country and who don't take no for an answer. People who made it to US have grit, resilience, and perseverance. And if you think about it, the work that immigrants have done in last many years, when their brains were matched with the opportunities in US. In 2016, all 6 Nobel Prize winners in US were immigrants. If you look at recent history, many successful companies were started by immigrants. If I ask you to take out your iPhone and throw it in the garbage today, and when you go back to your desktop, there's no Google, how will you feel? Both Apple and Google are the result of combination of immigrants' brain and US opportunities. So did they use the opportunity or did they create? I say they used the opportunity, multiplied it by thousands, and created for others. That is how US becomes a land of opportunities. You subtract the work done by immigrants, it's a different country. Right now is an interesting inflection point. I see two big changes happening in the world. First one, the whole world is becoming one global market. I can tell you, my sisters buy more Estee Lauder products than I do. My cousins buy iPhones much faster than I do. Second change, the rest of the world is catching up in creating opportunities for their talent and try to keep them inside. On top of these changes, if we in the US close our doors on the rest of the world, guess what? We'll be eating our lunch alone, and we'll be the only one eating our lunch alone. Best brains will go somewhere else to create next Apple, next Google, even next Cirkled in. And the global markets may close their doors on us too. So, is that what we want to do? As far as I'm concerned, as an immigrant, I feel extremely privileged to have access to two extreme cultures. I grew up all over again in the United States. I started with 2 suitcases, today building a life with 2 kids and a company with 2 employees. Pretty darn good, right? And I still believe that I can change the world, and I will. In addition, I'm raising the next generation of rebels and change makers. My daughter, Prakriti Shukla, Indian American or American Indian, doesn't matter. What matters is her dreams, her aspirations, and the opportunities she has. She wants to cure the cancer and be president someday. Hey, some norms are meant to be broken, right? She gets all the pencils she wants, and still plenty of opportunities to better the world. This story is still in writing, but I would like to close today's narration with a song, which is my song and my daughter's song.
Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion, like how a single word can make a heart open. I might only have one match, but I can make an explosion. And all those things I didn't say, wrecking balls inside my brain, I will scream them loud tonight. Can you hear my voice this time? This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Starting right now, I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song. And I don't really care what nobody else believes, 'cause I still got a lot of fight left in me. Yeah, I still got a lot of fight left in me.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, Prakriti. That was an amazing song, and I know all of your fellow students at Tesla STEM High School in Redmond will be so proud. That was, I'm trying not to cry, that was so beautiful. I'm really pleased to introduce our next speaker. I had the pleasure of meeting him this summer and visiting his beautiful home in Port Orchard. He is Todd Stabelfeldt. He is the CEO and founder of C4 Database Management, and he has really embraced technology as a means for professional independence and personal freedom as well. Please welcome Todd Stabelfeldt.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm not sure how to come on the stage and speak when you're crying because the song. That was good. So thank you. Well, I'm just going to get my bearings here for a second. They said 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Look at this. How am I going to do 20 minutes, right? I might just do 40. Whatever Todd said, right? Forget it. Exactly, right? Who's going to push the dude in the wheelchair off the stage because it went over 20 minutes? Said no one ever. Ever. All right. Yeah, I'm the founder of C4 Database Management. But actually, that's not at all why I'm here to talk. And we can always talk about that later if you wanted to, but this has been a wild ride. It's been a wild ride. I'm 38 years old. And I've been super crippled for over 30. And I grew up in this country, and everything that woman just said is absolutely the truth. The fight. The fight. Whew. They said, what do you want to talk about? And I said, well, I'm tired of talking about the word accessibility. I'm tired of talking about the word assistive technology. God, you say those words and everybody just right away goes to disabilities, and, speech, rec, and eye gaze, and all these other things. And it's like, man, this needs to be bigger than that. This is everybody. Speech rec for the quad is speech rec for the world, right? Convenience for you is independence for me. Or I represent millions of people worldly. So I said, let's do universal design. Well, what's that? What's fascinating to me the last 2 days has been nothing but talking about that. Diversity, inclusion, universal design. Judas, Satya did most of my speech already, I was back there in the corner excited. I'm going, dude, you still in my game, man. As soon as it's going to go, that's what Satya said. Okay, I'm out. It's universal design. What does it actually do for you and how it impacts your story? Next slide, because that's how good I am, right? Voice rec, boom, did it. Okay, yeah, exactly. In your face, all you voice recs. I got Colton. That's what I got. Full time, guy in the back. I didn't even start with anything like really, really perverse or profound humor or offensive humor. So let me do that real quick, just so you all get in the groove. So I'm in fact referred to as a quadriplegic. Okay, that means I have 4 extremities that don't have really much movement. Yeah, really? Look, yeah, go figure that one. Yes, so 2 quadriplegics walk on a bar, okay? How dare you laugh? That's horribly offensive, right? But it's this horribly good joke, right? What do you call a nun with quadriplegia? Right, Virgin Mobile. Oh, there it is. All right, I know exactly. Jeez, that lady just laughed, I think. All right, universal design, this is my take. So we'll read it real quick. Universal design is design and composition of an environment so that it can be accessed, understood, and used to the greatest extent possible by all people, regardless of their age, size, ability, or disability. The next slide is somebody who's really smart and wrote a better description, which I'm not going to read because it is difficult for me to put words together to form sentences. That has never been my sort of core competency. I write SQL, and I do that well, and that's about it. This particular individual, PhD, great lady at UW, really laid it down, really wrote it out. This should not be an add-on. This should not be an after the fact. This should be a part of the beginning, of the thought. It should be named. It should be real within the story. We all are just a bunch of stories in this room, hanging out, trying to figure out how to do right and how to do you. This is the definition of universal design as it manifests in an actual story, and the story named Todd. Next slide. We've heard it before, and people have always said these things. It's also known as this, that, and the other. The last bullet point is the most important. It's simple concept, but man, until you name it, until you begin to apply it, Is it just sort of this afterthought, and then it becomes more expensive to do, and it becomes harder to do? And in this particular story, I always laugh, people usually name curb cuts, right, as like the ultimate universal design. That was, 1960. Right, now it might be the actual handicap button that you press. But now I'm seeing that the handicap button's actually lower. There's usually two now. There's one down low, one up high. Because everybody got a footrest, right? Everybody got a walker. Everybody got a cane so you could beat on something, your dog or whatever, right? Next slide. This is universal design in my story. It's a short little film. Go for it, bro.
You're Todd, but since we're friends, I get to call you Quad Father.
Hey Siri, unlock the front door.
Okay, the front door is unlocked.
Let's go, girl.
We all got a pen, man. We all writing it down. We're putting out the chapters. So what's the story about?
Hey Siri, set business time.
I refuse for this story to be a bad read.
Hey Siri, play dinner playlist. Have you tried any of this?
No. Is it bueno?
It is delish. I like the jam.
Need somebody's jam. Dude, you're gonna see tonight, man. You got a whole group of mugs up in the room.
We got people.
We're all different. Ventilators popping off and sip and puff drivers.
All right, we're gonna gather around the TV so you can give us a demonstration. Thank you. I love this. So good. Act normal. Now, what's really dope show about those lights? Watch this. Hey Siri, dining table lights, 25%.
You got it. Quad Father.
That's how you do it.
I feel like it's my job, my responsibility to go down to the valley and to hang with that brother that's in that space. That's just the way you do story. You interact with others and you learn from others. And I think that's really, really righteous.
So I think that was like a minute and a half or whatever. And that has summed up the last 30 plus years of the story. Folks, all I got is a PhD in pain and suffering. To get here today is a 4 a.m. start for me. I live in Port Orchard in that beautiful home, which we refer to as the Quadthedral. My beautiful babe, Karen, we've been in that house for just about 2 years. Now, she's a smart one. She's got the multiple master's degrees, etc. I'm not. I just sort of learned things by fire. And we made this home absolutely fantastic and wonderful. And we did it because of necessity. We did it because we wanted independence. I want to be a husband, okay? And I want to be a husband and I want to do it well. I don't want to be some ding-dong disabled dude, right? I want to be real. I want to be independent. I want to demonstrate my masculinity in all the ways that are of quality and all the ways that are integrity. You do that by making sure you take care of your girl. And you demonstrate that clearly and consistently. Well, how do I do that? Well, in the ecosystem I picked, which I love that there's multiples out there, I ended up picking HomeKit for me. It works for me. But some of my buddies, they're all about the Google, right? Or they're all about the Amazon. And I love the fact that we all can pick what we want, sort of what our preference and profile is. Because what you guys do and make and decisions you make, and I don't even know really what your story is here, is that you make my life real. I'm the demonstration of universal design. You allow me to be married and to be a father of two, and to be the owner of sweet little Olivia, who you saw at the beginning of that little film, little 40-pound Rottweiler, mixed with a little bit of pit bull, and got a ridiculous overbite. Then you got to see my little lady, Beatrice, Rottweiler. She was on the couch just chilling. That's what she does. You. I don't know what your situation, what your story is, man. You happy, you not happy? Guess what? You making choices. You're grown. You're an adult. And your good choices impact me and the people I represent. So if you came here for a couple days to get a little refresh, like what the boy Satya said, man, click it. Grow up, because you make my life better. Serious. I want to sit on that one for just a moment. I want to meditate on that one for a moment. Because I feel like you, the decision makers in the room, need to really understand what you do and why you do it. And maybe you get the theory, maybe you get the equation, maybe you get the use case scenarios. But this is real deal, boots on the ground. I just happen to grow up in a Navy, German, Southern household. Failure wasn't an option. Everybody's valuable. Everybody matters. Everybody must be putting groceries on the table. That's how I grew up. And at 38 years old, married with 2 kids and a couple dogs and a cat don't really like at all. In fact, you want to do something on the side later, let me know, okay? Baby girl, don't even need to know, all right? It's important, folks, to do what we do and do it from the beginning. Do it from the beginning and do it right. Don't be an add-on. Don't be an afterthought. We live in a fantastic world where we have some really cool opportunity to do some really cool things. And for me, like, what's my role? What's my spot? I think I'm just a dude, and the dude abides, right? I think that's my part in this whole scene. I got here on Friday night at the museum, and I wheel up to this dude and say, hey, what's up, how you doing? And his response was 10001111000. Man, you a geek, man. It's like, right on. That's not my scene. They're like, well, what's my part here, wheeling around the last couple days? And I think it's just me demonstrating my story and what you do. Hit me with that next slide. How are you going to apply it in your story? Because if you're going to do me right, and help the world that I live in and my demographic, typically you only do it because you're somehow impacted by it, such as a loved one, like a family member gets hurt, or you have somebody who's born with a disability or whatnot. That shouldn't be the motivation. The motivation should be doing because everybody has the right and everybody has the opportunity. Hit me with that next slide. This one's blank. You know what that means? I'm about done. And also, you're grown. Go make those choices that are important to you and the people you serve. And if you need me, I'm always here. Next slide. GeekWire, I love you guys. Appreciate you. Had no idea you even existed until about 3 or 4 months ago. Straight up, man. I've been behind 8 monitors for the last 20 years writing code. That's all I do, write code. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, hey, you're different. Man, you really, whoa, you a different style brother. Yes, I am. And the dude abides. I love you guys. Keep it real. Leave or stay?
You got it.
Want me to go?
I have just one word for you, Todd. Righteous. That's right, righteous. Awesome. If you like me, would like to hear more from Todd, Lisa Stifler, who introduced Todd, wrote a superb story about him after visiting his home with the Rottweiler and the cat, too, I believe, was still there at that point. So it was just wonderful to hear from Todd. We're going to say goodbye to our live stream audience for the day, and we hope you'll join us next October for the GeekWire Summit. Big thanks to our partners at Bootstrapper Studios. And actually, forgive me, that is not correct. We're going to have you come back at 1 o'clock, just one more time. later on for Spencer Raskoff and his live version of his Office Hours podcast, which will be coming up later on. So jump the gun there a little bit. Our next session will take us into the world of payment processing, something that impacts us as